Hey guys, I'm Shyrshadi. Welcome to StarCraft Breaking the Barriers Episode 7. Today we're looking at a Platinum level PvT, and we're going to, as usual, begin with the Platinum focus. Every league in StarCraft 2 builds upon the league below it, so again we're going to start with the opening build order, probes, pylons, supply blocks, and basically just macro training, but we're going to also include continuing to refine builds. So if you've already learned a build, it's going to be learning the next step of that build or learning how to transition from that build. It's basically being able to execute that better and being able to execute the next steps. Starting to scout specifically for information. Earlier we had just sent a probe across the map from Bronze all the way through Gold League just saying, do you have a natural? Did you go to gate before you expanded to Nexus first? Did you go into double gas as a Terran? Did you go pool first as a Zerg player? Now we're actually going to be looking for things more specific because as we move on and get better at StarCraft, our opponents will as well. And so they'll have a better idea what they're doing as we have a better idea what we are doing. And you're going to start looking specifically for things like what's his drone count on his natural look like right now, which means is he building a lot of lings or is he trying to build drones? Is my opponent building tanks or is he building widow mines? So you're looking for very specific things at various points in the game, and we're going to look at that a little bit as far as replay specific in this next series as we look at going into the platinums. Learning to harass, which is, as something I had previously said in lower leagues, is something I don't advise. Well, in Platinum, hopefully you've developed your macro to the point where you can start developing your multitasking as well, and can actually start putting on pressure and start harassing and be able to learn how to do that while you're macroing. And that kind of multitask is a very important and also very difficult thing to learn. I'm actually still learning it in Diamond 1, trying to properly macro behind my aggression, which I'm getting better at, but obviously I'm still in Diamond, so I have more to go. And army control and micro. So basically the objective in the lower leagues is to be able to A-move your opponent to victory simply by having more stuff. And to an extent that does still happen in Platinum and even Diamond, and I've even seen it happen in Masters. But this is the part where you start learning how to control your army. It's when you learn how to control click your Colossi to pull them away from Vikings without pulling the rest of your army out of the fight. It's where you'll learn to control click your Blink Stalkers to blink under things, where you'll learn how to force field micro, you'll learn how to cast storms properly. There's a lot of information to go over in Platinum Focus, and it's not all going to happen in this video, but this is just specifically for a replay that we're going to be getting into now. This replay is brought to us by Commodore Zav. He played this versus Cybercores on the ladder. And we're going to do a lot of fast forwarding in the early game because at this point you should already know what the normal 19 Nexus opener is. Our Protoss player executes this very well. Does a really good job as soon as his Cyber Core completes. He starts his Mothership Core, he starts his Adept, he starts Warp Gate. And the first area that I would say that he actually did something that I didn't like was Mothership Cores rallied to the natural, just moving up to the top of this ramp. And the Reaper's actually coming in right here. So what you want to do is keep your Mothership Core by your Nexus to begin with. You have nothing really to defend on the low ground. You have no pylons to overcharge. So there's no real reason to move your Mothership over there unless you're actually chasing the Reaper. Because the Reaper hasn't actually come in yet, moving your Mothership Core away from a pylon to overcharge, moving it away from your mineral line, means you very likely are going to lose some probes. And we actually do see the Reaper get in here and get some damage done. Fortunately, a very quick response by Commodore Zav means there's only one probe kill, and the Reaper goes down. So, less than ideal situation there, because the Mothership Core was pulled down. And you see also, Mothership Core is on patrol in the natural. There are no pylons to overcharge. So there's no real reason to have the Mothership Core in the natural for now. Robo is the follow-up, which I am absolutely okay with. Robo for Colossus early game PvT is actually what I do the majority of the time. It's a very fun, very macro, defensive macro rather, style to play. So we do see pretty good execution. The gateways are a little bit late, but I could forgive him for that. Actually, one other thing is this gas here has been missing a probe since he pulled to defend the Reaper that was over here. So he has not actually fixed this the entire game, so he's going to be a little bit gas hungry for a large part of this. So he made an Adept and then he made a Stalker, which is fine. I usually make 2 Adepts and I'll warp in 3 Stalkers, but it's fine. It's a stylistic thing. Gets his Robo Bay down pretty quick. He's already got his gases about to complete. Those came down at normal time. He's getting his observers out first. First one going across the map. Second and third going to be here at the base. He already has decent probe production so far. Sitting on 44 at 5 minutes, which is not terrible. But you notice he keeps pausing his probes here, and he's actually a little bit supply blocked. So he missed a couple pylons. He hit a small supply block around 46, and then at mid-50s he forgot to start anything until he was almost supply blocked. So he made 3 pylons to try to catch up from being supply blocked since he couldn't spend as many anyway, which is fine. Now he's already beginning his Colossus production with his Chrono on the Robo Bay, which is great. He's building 2 more gateways before he starts his third, which I'm not a fan of. Now he mentioned earlier, his first observer went across the map, and all he went to do is just sit here above the army. He hasn't checked for a third yet. The Terran's third is actually faster than his, which is never where you want to really be as a Protoss. I mean, obviously there are fast third CC builds, but scouting it early means you know you can play a little bit greedier, so taking a faster third base would be ideal. But he's not doing it. He's just trying to play super defensive, getting some extra gateways. I would honestly recommend taking your Nexus before you build those 2 gateways. And this is where build refinement comes in, because you're looking specifically at a situation of the Terran is going to have a better economy than I do. So we're going to continue on. Again at double speed. So he warps in some Stalkers, good. Everything's positioned in the mineral lines in case it is a Widowmine drop. He's got decent observer coverage. His map vision's pretty good. And he's got his Adept on patrol. He's got a single Colossus so far, 3 Sentry Guardian Shield. But we're going to take another step back, and at the 6-minute mark, we're going to look at the probe count. Because we've mentioned a couple times that we want to have 60 probes at 6 minutes. At 6:04 he's on 50 because he saw him pause probe production a few times, and he actually continues to pause probe production. Like he starts another couple, they're done, but you see this huge gap in his probe production. They're sitting up. He's not supply blocked. He's just not consistently building probes. What's going to happen is this Nexus is going to finish, and he's not going to have enough probes to transfer to fill it up. The situation is if at 6 minutes you have 60 probes, and you started your Nexus at 5:30, for instance, you're going to have enough probes when your Nexus finishes to have a fully saturated mineral line and almost fully saturated gases. So basically your third base finishes and boom, 3 base economy. We also don't see a Twilight in a single forge, so if you're going to delay your Twilight much past this, going double forge is a good way to make up for it, so you've got double upgrades on the way. But we don't see a Twilight just yet, and that tech delay is going to come back to haunt him in the later game. One other thing I don't particularly like is this gateway placement. Versus Zerg, this is fine because you're trying to wall in here anyway, but it's going to make taking an engagement over here versus a Terran that's trying to push from this direction a little bit more difficult because your army won't be able to get in the way because you're effectively force fielded out with your own gateways. You have plenty of room in the main base to build. I actually build pylons around the edges of my base as well, so I have places to build extra gates. You can build extra gates up here. Building them over here happens a little bit later, which is less of a big deal to me because you're not really going to be fighting from here by that part of the game, but there's a push coming right here that you see our Protoss player Zav responded to because the observers saw it move out. So we're actually going to speed back up to that point. So you see he sees it move out with that observer, and his army rotates north, and he's going to intercept this. Now he actually fights this without his Colossus, which is less than ideal, but he cleans it up fairly well. Takes a couple unnecessary Widowmine hits. But it's just not really a reason to not fight with your Colossus. Resources lost so far. Yeah, Protoss has lost a little bit more. Lost a couple sentries to that Widowmine shot. and 5 Stalkers to the Marauders. So if he'd fought with his Colossi, he would have not lost as much. He would have cleaned it up a little bit faster. He might have been trying to hide his Colossus. I don't actually know. But moving on. I'm going to see him transfer his workers eventually. He actually over-transfers. And he still doesn't have full saturation, because if you look at the unit count right now, almost 9-minute mark, and he's still at 52 probes. He's only lost, what, 1? Yeah, just the 1 from that initial Reaper. So by not having the probes you need, you can't really support high tech anyway. He's spending his money, which is pretty good, but he doesn't really have the kind of income he needs. Income right now, very much in favor of the Terran player, who has significantly more workers than the Protoss player, because the Protoss player quit making them. And this is going to become an issue in the not too distant future. They see him build his gases here, and building some extra gates for production. His Twilight is done and it's researching. He's getting observer speed? Or is that warp prism speed? That is warp prism speed. He gets his Templar archives. So he's just trying to switch off into late game tech. Well, here's another thing. At 10 minutes he does not have a 4th base. And he doesn't have the workers for 3 either. Still at 61 workers. About to have a 4th base. But the 4th base needs to come down 8:30 to 9 minutes. And he's trying to harass over here, but he doesn't really get anything done. He kills 3 workers, and he traded a lot of adepts for it. So just not ideal. And here comes this huge push with 3-3 on the way, 2-2 already completed, and 3-3 on the way for the Terran player. We see +1 and Blink with Extended Thermal Lance as our only real upgrades for the Protoss. So this is going to be a barbaric fight. Sitting on 4 Colossi, which is great. He saw the army coming, but Terran is coming in from this angle. The Protoss army is stuck up here. Now this is going to be a very classic I'm out of position fight. And you'll see what I mean very shortly. I'm going to slow it down the normal speed for this part. And the Vikings are able to get an angle on the Colossus, and there's not much the Protoss can do about it. The Terran army is able to get into the natural here. He gets a full concave. Storm is done, but he just A-moved his Templars, and he lost all of them. Vikings are going to focus fire the Colossi, which are not in the Guardian Shield anyway, and the rest of the bio is going to shred the rest of the Protoss. And it's going to look silly because there's so much Terran left after the Protoss army is dead. Commodore Zav did a lot of things right. His early game was pretty good. His Mothership Core, Adept, Warp Gate all started on time. Robotics Facility started on time. His 2 gates, 2nd and 3rd, were a little bit delayed, but about 5 or 6 seconds, not a huge deal. His Robobay came down on time. His 3rd and 4th gases came down on time. He missed a couple pylons here and there in the early game, but what really came back to haunt him was his lack of probes. When his 3rd base completed, he never really had 3 base saturation, even though he had 3 bases. He was mining out in his main base and he didn't quite have a 4th down, and when the Terran army hit him, it was more upgraded and more designed to counter what he already had, and he didn't have the next step, which would have been Storm and more upgrades in order to counter it. So simply by fixing his early game, his first 6 minutes of the game, will tremendously help Commodore Zav moving forward. If this series is helping you, be sure to comment below. It really does encourage me to see people actually helped by what I'm trying to do. Also, if you want to be part of this project, send me your replays to ShyrshadiSC2@gmail.com. The link will be in the description below, as well as the rest of the links to my social media stuff. Thanks, guys, and I hope it helps. Have an awesome day.